Hello and welcome to today's live stream Choral Question Time with me, Barnaby Smith, as part of VOCES8 Foundation's Live from Home campaign. As ever, I'm here to answer your questions about choral music. My other features on today's show include a rousing rendition of some coronation music, a catch-up with Blake and Euan in our Team Tenor chat, the first ever recipe in our new VOCES8 Choral Cookbook series. I'll also be chatting with former member of VOCES8, Emily Dickens, introducing you to a new quirky choral nerd YouTube series that I found. And as ever, I'll be running a little competition giveaway, giving you an exercise that you can do at home to keep your voice in good shape, and of course, playing some VOCES8 music. You've just heard Monteverdi's Adoramus Te Christe. So a show packed with great content to look forward to. It's actually a bit colder in Cambridge today, so a particularly warm welcome to my studio guests. Now, these shows do work best when they're interactive, so the onus, of course, is on you for that, to get on the comments threads and send your thoughts, ask your questions and give your feedback, and I'll be looking at those threads throughout the show. I've also got a couple of VOCES8 members helping me out with that, who you might be hearing from as well. If you're enjoying the content we're bringing into your homes, then you can support us by sending stars on Facebook or super comments on YouTube, and those are both new things that we're trying out, so please go and check them out. I should also say that I'm here to train and develop my skills so that we're able to adapt to whatever the post-COVID environment will look like for us. So we do need your feedback for that, so please get on those comments threads and let us know what you think, what you're enjoying, what you'd like to see more of, all that sort of stuff. First things first then, it's choral question time, so let's take a few quick fire questions, people who've very kindly written in advance. First one of those is from Alan McIntyre Young, who says, I once saw a YouTube video of John Eliot Gardiner and the Monteverdi Choir doing a live performance of the B minor Mass. And during the end of the Gloria, things went slightly amiss, but the ensemble found itself and ended spectacularly well. And he says there was something magical about the way that the musicians recovered. And he asks, what is it like in a live performance if something is flowing just as you expect and then suddenly goes wrong? Well, it's quite scary, Alan, but I think there's almost this sixth sense when you're on stage. You're when it's going really well, it feels like you're floating, really does, and then suddenly something catches your attention and it's all unraveling. But what we find in VOCES8 is everyone goes into this kind of emergency mode, and nobody really tries too hard to fix it most of the time. It just somehow finds a way of fixing itself, and it's nothing that you could ever replicate in a rehearsal, so it's something that you can't really practice either, but I think it's one of the benefits we get from singing together a lot as a group. When it's actually going really nicely, as I said, it's like floating on air. So great question. Adrian says, what's your favourite concert hall that you've ever sung in? Well, you'll get probably a few answers, different answers from different members of the group for this, Adrian. For myself, I would probably say Tokyo Opera City. It's this magnificent hall which is built like a cathedral. It's actually made of wood, and it's sort of in the middle of a huge shopping centre type building, and it's just got a phenomenal acoustic. It's not one of those acoustics which has a really long echo like we might find in a big cathedral, but it's just perfect for the type of vocal ensemble singing that we do. And I also remember that the first time we sung there as a group, I think it was 2012, it was a super big deal for us. So although we've been there a few times since, I have that memory of being in awe when I was standing in there singing for the very first time. And Claire says, are there certain types of music that the group enjoys singing more than others? Again, Claire, you probably get different answers depending who you ask, but I think universally everybody enjoys singing the early music, the English polyphony. I think probably also everybody enjoys singing the music of J.S. Bach. And I think it's also fair to say that we enjoy working with our arrangements, where we get all those luscious reharmonizations and things like that. Those are three things that we definitely like. And something, actually, we got asked this question yesterday, something that my brother Paul said in a seminar we were doing, was that he also thinks that commissioning composers is something that the group enjoys, and I have to say I absolutely agree with that. And I think the last time I got emotional on stage was actually when we were singing a commission, so plump for those four things. Now, from Pavarotti impressions to Elvis leads, the tenors in VOCES8 have to be exceptionally versatile creatures, and I spent a little bit of time yesterday catching up with our current crop of tenors, Blake and Euan. We had a little bit of a team tenor chat, so this is how we got on. Very nice to see you, team tenor. Thanks very much for joining us. So come on then, what have you been up to in isolation?
Oh, honestly, not that much. I've been exercising a bit. It's been good.
You're
Just
doing
trying.
Alexander technique, Euan, which has
I
been
have been.
very
That is
good. We
also
all
true.
enjoyed that. Thank
I
you.
don't know. That's a lot of lying and sitting down and stuff.
It counts
I've
as
also been doing
exercise,
the
does
active
it?
stuff.
Does it count as exercise, Alexander? Or is it not? Maybe not.
I've been I've been trying to do some push-ups and sit-ups and that sort of thing. Playing lots of guitar, playing lots of video games, all that kind of stuff.
So tell us, Blake, how many push-ups can you do in one go?
I could probably do 30 actually. Yeah,
that's not
I
bad.
know.
I'm up to 25.
Nice.
And, I have a bit, maybe just a little bit more to push
Well,
up than you do.
I think if you have a slightly longer body, despite how the weight is displaced, like it makes it a bit easier.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Euan, have you painted your wall in isolation, or was that done before?
No, that was done before. If I'd done it, it would be a lot worse. It is.
Very, very nice. What about binge TV? Anyone watching any binge TV?
Yeah, I'm watching. Speaking of Scottish fun, I've been watching lots of Outlander, which I think Ewan is very familiar with. But also lots of like catching up on old episodes of like Pokemon and some Miyazaki films as well. Yeah, all the anime,
Because you love your computer games, don't you? So do you play Pokemon on your?
I still play a bit of Pokemon. I've been playing a lot of Zelda.
Okay. Oh, there it is.
Yes.
Guilty pleasures. I'm on my PlayStation 4 a lot. In fact, actually, one of my friends I play PlayStation 4 a lot had a baby about 24 hours ago. So my game time is going to be going south.
You play online with him then?
Yeah, I play online. It's not something I ever do when we're working normally.
Yeah.
So, but obviously we've got a bit of time on our hands, so I've been doing a bit of.
Same. I mostly just play on my like handheld thing. I have the Nintendo Switch. I use it on planes, but for the most part, I never use it. So.
If anyone online wants to play a bit of Tom Clancy with me on PlayStation 4, then let me know on the chat, and I'll.
All right.
We can get going. How about you, Euan? Any binge TV?
Yeah, a little bit. Well, not so much. Just rewatching. So, like the American show Parks and Recreation. It's on basically every morning on TV.
Okay.
Just when I'm getting up to have my breakfast. So I basically just accidentally ended up rewatching most of that.
Now, dare we ask what time you get up to have your breakfast?
Oh, like 9-ish.
Okay, that's not so bad. All right, I'm an early bird, so I get up, but then I also go to bed early. We had that. I was laughed at last week for that particular thing. Now on today's show of Choral Question Time, I am featuring for the very first time the VOCES8 Choral Cookbook. It's something I've talked about for a few weeks prior to this and seemed to have got a positive response. So I'm actually walking the plank first and giving one of my own recipes this week. But when it will come round to you guys. So what do you think is going to be your dish in the VOCES8 Choral Cookbook?
Ooh. I don't know. The other week I cooked a parmigiana, which is an Italian dish with aubergines and mozzarella and tomato sauce.
Yeah, your partner's Italian, isn't she? So you've got a lot of Italian influence, and you've lived in Italy as well, have you?
Yeah. I lived there for a year, quite a while ago now. But yeah, so I cooked one of those, but it's quite time consuming. I don't know if I'd put myself through it again quite yet.
Okay, all right, Blake, any ideas?
Well, I can make a mean scrambled eggs.
Okay, right.
Kind of posh scrambled eggs. But actually, I think I've been really getting into lots of cocktail creation over this break. So maybe at the end of the book there could be a section.
Okay, a little bit of
yeah,
what you can mix. All right.
Yeah. I've been really doing this one recently. That's I'm calling it, like, it's my own creation. It's like a sort of a Mexican coffee old fashioned.
Yeah.
So it has whiskey, has lots of different types of coffee liqueur and some chocolate bitters and that kind of thing. It's tasty.
Okay. And have you guys been doing any singing during this period of isolation? Is that been keeping the neighbours up?
Yeah, a little bit.
I've been making some learning tracks, so mostly just like belting and screaming falsetto and that kind of
Definitely
thing.
Keeping it.
Yeah.
Actually, you've done a really cool thing on your personal Facebook page, haven't you? Some Warlock.
Oh yeah, it's a piece I've just been obsessed with ever since we were introduced to it by Robert Hollingworth.
Robert Hollingworth's featuring on this show as well, actually.
Oh, great.
So same guy, just to put that together for our audiences. Yeah, so go and keep going with your story.
Oh, it's an amazing piece of music. I was introduced to it at our summer festival in Milton Abbey, and I remember looking at it on the page and thinking, this is a piece of like atonal craziness. There's definitely not going to be any semblance of harmonic or melodic beauty in this. And then we sang it, and finally it took a lot of rehearsal to put together, but in the end I was just really struck by how homogenous and how beautiful it all like sort of lined up. And there's just some incredible gorgeous sonorities in the piece, and so I just decided to multi-track it for fun. There's not very many recordings of it.
What's it called?
It's called The Full Heart
By Warlock. It's on your personal Facebook, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Your tenor. Blake Morgan, super tenor page.
Yeah, screaming in falsetto.
Now, talking of being super tenors then, you know, would you consider, I mean, I've talked a bit on this show before about some of the things I have to do in order to keep my falsetto in the game, as it were. Is there anything special you think you guys need to do as tenors in order to look after your voice when you're not singing so much?
Yeah, I guess a couple of things. I think the main thing is just kind of using it. Like the top of a tenor range is not something that, it's not something you use a massive amount even when we're working particularly. Like a lot of the stuff we sing in VOCES8 doesn't go up to where I would consider the extreme kind of top of my ranges. So like, especially now that we're not doing concerts either, it's mainly a case of just trying to keep going up there as much as possible.
Stretching, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just making sure that it's available for when I need it again.
And do you think you, in those areas of the voice, would you perceive, as well as stretching it, that you would have to think about the fatigue element when you come back? Because that's something I find, is that I can sing in falsetto normally without, to be honest, without doing much upkeep on it. But then, you know, there's one thing being able to sing in falsetto, but then being able to do a 2-hour rehearsal followed by a 2-hour gig, then there's an element of fatigue that I'd need to make sure I wasn't going to suffer from. So was it a similar thing, do you think, for you?
Yeah, I'd say so for me. I've kind of find even just doing a little bit of practice, trying to do some regular stuff at the minute, I find that my endurance has gone down quite a lot.
Okay.
I think it's just a case of not being on a kind of regular touring schedule again. It's kind of taking a bit of a hit on it, and I'll have to definitely, when we know what we're doing in the future, I'll have to ramp it up a bit, I'd imagine.
How about you, Blake?
Quite loud.
Well, I think being a tenor in VOCES8 is all about strengthening and working in the head voice.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really just operating on the edge of the fold. So I think, you know, every lesson that I've ever been to for tenor technique is talking about bringing in the chest voice and then switching into passaggio around like F sharp, that kind of area. But I think in VOCES8 I still am in like the head voicey sound, even down to like middle C and that sort of area. So for me, it's a very light mechanism in comparison to what I would do standing out and singing, even a Bach solo, you know, something like that.
Yeah. And do you have, then, just for any tenors who are watching, or any singers even who are watching, do you guys have any exercises that you specifically choose to do in a period like this that you'd like to share that people can have a go at?
Well, I really like exercises that bridge that break in the passaggio and really work that area. And I think it's just like any other muscle, you know, if you're doing a bunch of bicep curls, you're going to have a hilarious arm that just goes like that, you know, and so I think you're just kind of working that area over and over and over again and sort of smoothing out the knots, you know, because a lot of people have, myself included, I have a natural break, you know, and it's that sort of thing. But sorry, I'm being Barney now and demonstrating. Here we go.
I was going to say, normally only I do that to demonstrate to my falsetto. Thank you for joining me.
An octave and a half, right? I think, yeah, just sort of smoothing over that break and then bringing the head voice down. So starting in what you'd call a falsetto voice and trying to bring that sound down into where you would start to feel in your chest. And I do those sort of exercise, and vice versa. I flip it around. Lots of shower warm-ups and stuff like that.
Okay. How about you, Euan?
Yeah, kind of similar stuff really. I try and go around the break and just kind of run up and down fifths, and I start doing it kind of both extremes. So I'll try and keep it mainly chest voice and then mainly head voice.
Okay.
And then just as I go, I'll keep redoing them and just try and bring a bit more blend into it. I mean, that's as much about kind of personal growth for me, just trying to discover what the perfect kind of point is for me to have that balance.
Okay, nice. Well, some useful tips there for people to try at home. Now, in VOCES8, people often ask us how we pick our voices, and I would definitely say that one of the things that we try to do is get, within any section, we try to get voices that both complement and contrast with each other. So, you know, you guys are really different sounds, different singers. So I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you in one sentence to describe the other person's voice. So who wants to go first?
Okay, I'll try to go first.
Okay.
I think Euan's voice is kind of like biting in to a rich plum, juicy plum on a summer's day. You know, just that kind of like, yeah, it's warm and delicious.
depth and a bit of bite in a plum as well, isn't there?
It's that initial, you have to break the skin, so there's that, burst of juice.
Very nice. Pressure's on, Euan. Can you be nice about Blake?
No, that is a lot of pressure. That's a lovely image. Thank you for that. I don't know. I think when I'm saying it's Blake, I think it's such a smooth sound. I think the way I see it is just like a really kind of smooth, refreshing drink, let's call it.
Okay.
You're into your cocktails. Let's call it a nice kind of smooth whiskey drink.
Ooh, nice.
What about a Negroni? Because a Negroni's got like a little bit of edge,
bitterness.
Yeah. It could be that kind of tenor nasal element. Oh, I like that. Boys, you've done well.
Kimchi. Yeah.
I think you both owe each other a drink.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. It's all over Euan.
So, the question I asked the girls last week when we were having our Upper Voice Summit, is there anything that you're missing about not being at work? So not being on tour, is there anything that you're missing about that?
I miss it a lot. And especially right now, thinking we were supposed to be in Munich today, actually. So I love German food. I just love food in general. And I think that's the thing. Obviously the music is the number one thing, but there are lots of perks of the job. And one of them is being able to sample food from all over the world. And we had Japan coming up this week. So things like that the cuisine of different cultures, it's just being immersed in a totally different world. And I love that aspect. I miss that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think similar actually. I really miss the travel of it, I guess. I think Japan especially, because I've never been sort of over to that side of the world before. And so I was really excited to go there. And that's kind of, hopefully get to go back there fairly soon.
Okay. Well, would you?
No, I've never. I think
December.
Yeah,
so fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think Moscow was probably the furthest east I've been, and that was one of our tours a couple of months ago now.
Yeah. Wow. Well, we're also slated to go to New Zealand, aren't we, in July, and China as well. And it's not cancelled yet. I don't think I need to get an update from our manager Robin about that, but who knows?
If we fly there and spend 2 weeks in quarantine there, which, hey, why not?
All right. So, what about things then? So that's things you're missing about the job. Is there anything that you're finding as a perk for the fact you're at home a little bit more?
Yeah, I think I'm finding I feel much better rested in general, and I think especially that comes into exercise as well. Like I'm enjoying being able to exercise and actually wanting to do it. Whereas normally when we're on tour, I go to like hotel gyms and stuff, and it's about 7:30, 8 in the morning.
You're a very good gym bunny on tour,
Yeah.
I mean, it's, I tend to go out of the hotel to my exercise, but whenever I walk past the gym, there's always Euan. And the impressive thing about Euan is it's not just cardio. You also do your weights and all that kind of stuff. And I can tell that you must have had a personal trainer at one point in your life, have you?
Not particularly. I've been in personal training sessions before.
Okay. All right.
I've not specifically been.
Like I look at you and I think, wow, this guy knows, it's like impressive.
I remember the first time that Barney saw you working out in the gym, and he came down and told the rest of us, he was just like, Euan knows what he's doing, man. He has his workout routine. I just, man, it's impressive.
And managed to maintain that for months now. Maintain the image of that. It's good. Like, it's nice exercising and not feeling exhausted in the mornings before I have to go and do it. Which is quite nice.
Okay. Well, look, guys, thank you very much for catching up with us. Very nice to see you in isolation. And please stay well, stay safe, and hopefully we can do some singing together soon.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
Lots of love. Bye.
See you soon.
Hands up, who would like to try one of Blake's cocktails? Lots of lovely comments coming in, and very nice to chat to my friends Team Tenor there. Thank you very much. So a big shout out to Jarek Ananhez, who says, shout out please. There you go, Jarek. Karen Burkholtz asks, what's with the bear collection? Well, they're my friends in isolation, Karen. Chindu says, Barney, would you guys go rogue and perform from isolation a piece or two virtually from your homes? We'd love to do that, Chindu. We have a little problem over the internet with latency, with lag, but we're looking at the options for recording in our own homes and being able to bring you some music that we've been able to make in the recording studio environment where we haven't necessarily had to stand next to each other, so keep your eyes open for that. Stephen says, I've noticed small ensemble choral music tends to use a lot of straight tone, and what are some of the best practices to be able to maintain consistent intonation as a group? Yes, we do use quite a lot of straight tone. I would say always try and control the straight tone from your core if you can, by just putting a little bit of extra support into the core. So I tend to imagine that rubber band pulling sideways and not allowing too much holding up here or in the breastplate. So that's what we always try to do. In terms of the intonation, well, we practice that really quite hard. And I think one of the interesting things about singing an ensemble is that it doesn't always sound in the ensemble like it sounds outside the ensemble. So quite a lot of the practice that we do is a sort of calibration process for realizing exactly how the intonation sounds when we're inside, so that it's perfect when you're listening from the outside. And as part of that as well, we also work a lot with just intonation, and that's something that we practice. And Blake has done some fascinating talks on how you can achieve that. Tom Law says, how often do you guys sing opera, and what's your favourite one? Well, Tom, in VOCES8 we don't sing opera very much. I think we all have singing lessons, and in those singing lessons we would often sing a lot of solo singing repertoire to make sure that our voices are in great shape and we're kind of keeping them in really good health. What's my favourite opera? Oh, that is a big call. Off the top of my head, I'm going to go Marriage of Figaro is one that I would certainly always look to go to if it was in town near me. So that's something I look for. Any of the Mozart operas are great, aren't they? But I also love the romantic ones too. La Bohème is something that's always fun to see, even though you know how it ends. Now, to the answer from last week's competition, when I asked you which current member of VOCES8 you thought this is. Any last guesses? Well, the answer is Katie Jeffries-Harris, my lovely alto buddy. We had loads and loads of correct answers. In fact, loads of entries, but a huge amount of correct answers. And I selected one of those from random to be the winner, and that was Heidi Good. So congratulations, Heidi. A CD is finding its way to you now. Now, this week's competition takes a slightly different form. Over the past few choral question times, I've been talking a lot, or mentioning the idea of a VOCES8 choral cookbook. And whenever it's come up, you, our audience, has always reacted very positively. So this week I decided that I would bite the bullet and give it a go. And I've incorporated the competition giveaway into this segment, so you've got to watch it very closely. I should say now that Andrea has signed up to star in the Choral Cookbook next week. So plenty to look forward to there, because frankly, she's really quite a good cook and certainly a lot better than me. So I'm sorry this week you have to put up with me, but here goes nothing.
Hello everybody, and welcome to the first recipe from the VOCES8 Choral Cookbook. Not putting up our best chef first, but it was my idea, so I thought I better be the guinea pig. And the recipe I'm going to make today is something that we can all try at home, hopefully with our kids as well if we have them. It's Barney's gingerbread men. I see Barney's gingerbread men. There has to be a little bit of a disclaimer at this point. I actually got the recipe from my mum, because we used to make these when, as she says, I was knee-high to a grasshopper. So first of all, the ingredients. Very simple recipe. We're going to need 8 ounces of plain flour, which I've measured here, 4 ounces of margarine, a further 4 ounces of caster sugar. I've used golden caster sugar here, a little bit of ginger. Depends how strong you want to be. I put 3 to 4 teaspoons. Teaspoons? No, don't do teaspoons. Tablespoons of ginger in my gingerbread men, and a couple of egg yolks. Once we've got the recipe all mixed together, we're going to need a little bit of milk just to bind it together. And of course, dig out your favourite cookie cutter so that you can make the shapes that you want to make at the end. So first things first, we're going to put the margarine into the flour, then the sugar into that mixture, then the ginger. Once all that's nicely mixed together into a nice sort of breadcrumb feel, we're going to tip in the eggs and then use the milk to bind it together. Here we go. Gingerbread, 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 gingerbread. You're full of sugar, you're full of spice. You're kinda naughty, but you're naughty and nice. Gingerbread, gingerbread. Okay, now as you can see, I've mixed together my flour, my sugar, my margarine, and my ginger, and I've got this sort of breadcrumb mixture. So now we're going to need to bind that together a little bit. So first things first, a couple of egg yolks. And now, in my view, the most delicate part of the process, you can see it's bound a little bit, got a little bit moist, but we need to add a little bit of milk. So just a drop of milk at a time until the ingredient binds itself nicely together. Okay,
And here we have it. Here is my gingerbread mixture. Now, the most important part of the process, I think, is always to try it. Very nice, yours too. Next thing then, let's make our gingerbread shapes. So, a note to everyone that I've actually turned my oven on prior to starting here. We're going to cook this at 190 degrees Celsius. You might have to convert that into Fahrenheit if you're from a particular part of the world. And I've done that because I'm a fan-assisted oven. So it's gas mark 5, 190 degrees Celsius. And we're going to cook these for 12 to 15 minutes. But again, that's because I'm fan-assisted and obviously I'm working on a Celsius oven. So I've pre-prepared my tray with some flour on it so that my gingerbread men don't stick to the tray. Here I have my favourite cookie cutter, and now I need to get a little bit messy with my hands. And there we have it, some gingerbread men nicely cut out. So I'm going to stick these in the oven for 12 to 15 minutes, 190 degrees Celsius, and let's see what comes out. Now we're 8 minutes into the cooking process. I've done all of the cleaning up. I can just begin to smell the gingerbread cooking. 5 minutes to go. Yeah, so I'm armed with my spatula for getting them off the tray, my gloves, so I still have some hands left at the end, and I think, judging by the smell and the fact that they're browned on top and at the edges, my gingerbread men might be ready. Ooh la, here they come.
Houston, we've got one casualty. We've lost a head on one of them.
So we're going to leave those to cool down for just a minute. Whilst we do that, I'm just going to explain to you that at this point I would normally decorate my gingerbread men, but on this occasion I'm not going to, because I want to run a competition for a free CD giveaway to the person who can send me the picture of the nicest decorated gingerbread men before my choral question time next Tuesday. So you've got a week to enter. Please follow my recipe, let me know what you think, and send me a picture of your decorated gingerbread, and I'll pick the ones that I think look the most appetizing and fun for a free CD. Let's see how they've turned out. What are we going to call him? It feels just nice and moist, very, very hot still. Woo! Oh. Let's take his head off. Beautiful, just moist on the inside, browned on the edges. Although it's still a bit warm, absolutely passes the taste test. So there we go, the first VOCES8 Choral Cookbook recipe is my gingerbread men. Enjoy. 2 months ago, if you'd asked me what I'd be doing today, I don't think I'd have said cooking gingerbread live on Facebook. Thank you for all the lovely comments. And a reminder that this week's competition is to make your own gingerbread, please following my recipe so you can test it. And send me a picture of your decorated gingerbread to barnaby@voces8.com, and I'll choose my favourite decorations and most appetizing looking submissions and give away another one of our lovely new After Silence albums. They're not out yet, they're not coming out till July, so it's a pre-release copy. I should also put in a small disclaimer that hashtag VOCES8 VOCES8 wasn't exactly my idea, that was my partner Libby's creation, so thank you very much for the pun, Libby. Now, in just a moment, I'm going to feature this week's CD recommendation, but we've had lots of great questions coming in, so let's take some of those first. Debbie Lumley-Edwards says, do you ever have your own personal singing teachers, vocal coaches? And if so, how long have you stayed with the same teacher? Changing teachers is so daunting. Absolutely, Debbie, and something that all singers think very hard about and sometimes struggle with. In VOCES8, we have our lovely vocal coach called Ulrich Mesthaler, who comes over a few times a year to give us all a vocal MOT, and he acts very much as our singing teachers. And then if people wish to go and see other teachers, perhaps for a specific repertoire reason, or if they're looking to develop their technique in a specific way that that teacher might have a specialism in, then everybody's welcome to do that. But it's crucial for us that we maintain our vocal health, and having our lessons with Ulrich is a really important part of that. Terry Ball says, any plans in the near future for more lectures by Johnny or Blake? Because I found them very rewarding and certainly educational. Yes, Terry, they are in the pipelines. In fact, Blake's coming up later this week, and I know Johnny's working on something as well. So keep an eye out for that. Very nice to hear from you, Terry. Great friend of VOCES8, so thanks for all your support. David Hayton says, hi, Barney, loving these sessions, especially enjoying your chat with my friend Naomi last week. And how did you find your own voice in the context of the blend, and to what extent do you have to compromise on individual tone? It's a very good question, David. I'm lucky in the fact that I'm the only countertenor, so I have a really specific role, I suppose, and that's to bring that sort of falsetto sound, which for me is a little bit of, well, Blake already used the term plum, didn't he? But a little bit of richness and roundness into the texture. So I know when that's needed that's something I can help with. How much do we compromise? Well, I think every single singer in VOCES8 will tell you that it's probably about 95% compromise. So I don't think I ever really, in a VOCES8 concert, make a sound on stage that I would truly make if I was just standing up and singing by myself. Maybe a little bit in our polyphony from time to time, but most of the time it's a very different style of singing. So coming back to Debbie's question about singing lessons, I suppose really important that we keep up that personal style of singing as well, so you don't lose yourself as a singer. Just before I move on then, a reminder that it's going to be Andrea up next week on the Choral Cookbook, a VOCES8 Choral Cookbook, so we're looking forward to that. Now, my CD choice this week brings together a collection of influences from my youth. I was very fortunate to be a chorister at Westminster Abbey and sung on many royal occasions. And in my formative years, my favourite CDs were often releases by Gabrielli and Paul McCreesh. Now, as I'm a professional musician, I'm very good friends with Paul, who I still look up to very much, and I also rely on him for quite a lot of guidance, more than I probably should, so thank you very much, Paul. Now, Paul's well known for putting together projects that the rest of the music industry, it seems, could only dream of. And my CD recommendation today features his most recent epic recording project, which is called An English Coronation. In what's probably my favourite British cathedral, Ely Cathedral, Paul and Gabrielli bring the history, ceremony and liturgy of the coronation to life. Flair, combined with painstaking research, create a result that is joyful and celebratory of 5 centuries of choral music, performed with the same vast forces as were heard at the coronation services themselves. Now, alongside an orchestra of rare early 20th century instruments, an extended Gabrielli consort is amplified also by the energetic sound and young, fresh faces of several hundred singers from Gabrielli's choral training program, which is called Gabrielli Raw. This is a CD I often listen to provide me with inspiration. It encourages me to dare to dream, very different scale to what we do in VOCES8. And I think that's really important at the moment, especially during these times. It also fills me with a sense of nostalgia, which is nice, especially with a glass of red wine. Needless to say, the performances are outstanding, as is the disc presentation and booklet. It's really, when you hold it in your hands, you feel it's a premium product, and one I think you simply have to have in your collection. It's released on Gabrielli's own label, which is called Winged Lion, and I thought there was no better way to introduce you to the genius of this CD than by playing you the glorious rendition with 500 plus musicians in Ely Cathedral of Parry's I Was Glad. That was Parry's rousing I Was Glad, performed by Gabrielli with Paul McCreish conducting. Over 500 musicians there in the awe-inspiring surrounds of Ely Cathedral in the UK. And that track is taken from the CD An English Coronation, released on the Winged Lion label. And that's my CD of the week, and I'm sure you can all see why. Thanks to everyone who's been commenting and asking questions. Tom Law says, would VOCES8 consider recruiting heavier or weightier voices for VOCES8? We're open to anything, Tom. I think the voice always has to be able to fit into the group sound when necessary. We love a voice that can shine and be individual, but we also need a singer and a musician and a voice that can fit into our sound. So that can sometimes be a limiting factor with really big voices. Laura Francesca Filippucci says, countertenor voices often deteriorate with time. Is it true, and if so, why? Yes, I suppose they do, and the reason for that is because we require a lot of flexibility with our muscular structures in order to be able to reach the parts of the voice that we need to and put the larynx into a position that enables us to sing in that way. We're also singing very much on the outside of the vocal folds, which of course also age a little bit with time, so lose a little bit of the beauty of the sound that way too. But I'll hold on for as long as I can, Laura, don't you worry. Andrew Schrader says, what's your favourite musical, Broadway or other? Well, anyone who knows me well will know I have a penchant for a musical called Chess, which was written by the guys from ABBA. If you don't know it, definitely worth checking out. And I'm not embarrassed to tell you that I know all the words to the rap from One Night in Bangkok. So test me. I have done it actually once at our summer school in Milton Abbey with my brother, Paul. Tyler, very nice to hear from you, Tyler. He says, hey there, Michigan person here. I'm always curious if musicians like yourself have ever tried overtone singing. I wouldn't say we have, but I can certainly tell you that Blake has, and Blake is very, very good at it. So if you go and check out his videos on intonation, you can actually hear him overtone singing in those. John Swedberg, one of our US scholars, very nice to hear from you, John, asks an excellent question, an insightful question. You can tell he's a professional musician and conductor, I think, as well. He says, hey, Barney, what are some of your suggestions to keeping musical freshness and piece-long architecture throughout the drudgery and choppy nature of a long recording session? Very good question, John. For those people who've not experienced a recording session, the way we tend to do it is we might do a run or two of the piece, but then we'll go back and split the piece into small takes and do a little bit of it at a time. And of course, as you can imagine, the danger is you lose the overall vision that you might get and feeling of flow as you move through the piece when you're singing the whole thing as one go. So what we try to do, John, is make sure that we're well enough rehearsed technically, but also that we've really discussed a lot in advance how we want to sing the piece. And often we have to remind ourselves in a recording, hang on guys, when we're trying to work on getting a particular chord in tune, let's really remember that conversation we had. So we've got something really to refer back to. We also rely on our production team to keep an eye on that. And then sometimes we will get the piece so it's fully recorded, so we've got everything in lots of little chunks, but then we might cover the piece 2 or 3 times in its entirety, depending on what it is, so that when it comes to the edit, if it feels like it's getting a little bit technical and not particularly on that performance plane, we've got some performances that we can dip into. So those would be my tip for that. Keep your comments coming. If you're enjoying the content, hit the emoji buttons. A reminder that you can send stars and also on Facebook and super chats on YouTube. So please come and get involved. My next segment looks back at some of the group's history. Let's start then with a track from our Bach Motets album, which unbelievably was recorded a decade ago this month. So we're going to listen to that before we welcome a very special guest. That was Sing It, Dem Herrn by Johann Sebastian Bach, taken from the group's Bach Motets album, which we recorded in 2010. The incredible young light-footed soprano you heard was Emily Dickens. That was recorded in your first year of the group, I think, Emily. And when
I think it was one of the first things we did.
You were just 21 years old, I think, at the time, were you? Or maybe
21,
22.
yeah.
Absolutely incredible. It's so lovely to have you here. Thanks for joining us. You were in the group for 8 years. I'm sure many people who are watching who know the group will remember you very, very fondly. But you left, what, 3 years ago now? So catch us up. What have you been doing since?
Gosh, I can't. I mean, it's not even quite 3 years actually. Yeah, just over 2.5, which feels, yeah, it's gone so fast. That. Well, I've had a really nice time working with lots of different musicians and singing with different groups. So I've been singing with BBC singers, Gabriele, Tenebrae, La Nova Musica. That's been really interesting. So coming out of one ensemble that I had done pretty much, just that for 8 years to work with lots of other people. Done some really fun recording. And then when I first left the group, I launched straight into directing some of the choirs for the London Symphony Orchestra and at St Martin in the Fields, which was brilliant, lots of fun and lots to learn quite quickly. So yeah, it's been a whirlwind, but it's been really interesting. And
I mean, you've literally gone from being in one group for 8 years, and that was all your professional experience, to suddenly being a portfolio musician with different skills. Because I mean, you do so much education workshop work as well, don't you? So you're conducting, singing, workshop leading. It's incredible.
Yeah, I really enjoy that actually. I mean, obviously right now that work's not happening because it requires big groups of people in one place and it's not safe. But yeah, I really enjoy working with choirs. I've been doing some adjudicating. So just before lockdown happened, I was in Bahrain judging the Young Musician of the Gulf, which was amazing to hear lots of instrumentalists. And then I was due to go to Hong Kong to do the same thing. And then obviously, of course, that couldn't happen. But I do think that, I mean, being in VOCES8, we had to do so much. So in a way, that set me up pretty well for launching into this kind of career.
Awesome. I mean, going back to that sort of environment of music making, you've just listed about 10 choirs, world-class choirs that you sing in. What's the process of music making itself? How does it differ? Because obviously it was just the 8 singers in VOCES8, and then there's other choirs, there are different groups of people, freelancers. So what's the working pattern like?
That's been really interesting because of course I was used to working in one team every day, so we knew instinctively how each other would breathe, and now of course each time I turn up it could be different. And I think for my at least the first 6 months out of the group, I found that quite strange because I felt like everything was new every time. And now I often work with similar singers. So I might turn up with one choir and sing next to a soprano that I've sung with the week before, in a different choir. So you do start to get that teamwork. But things have to be turned around really quickly. So the rehearsal time is generally shorter. Except for some of the BBC things, you get a bit longer to rehearse, especially if you're rehearsing with an orchestra. There'll be lots of sessions. So it's been a lot to learn. I think.
One of the things I enjoy about being in VOCES8 is when we work with external directors. We bring people in to coach the group, and as a director myself, I know that has a huge influence on me as a musician. So do you enjoy working with the different directors, or is that stressful because when you go to someone you're so used to working a certain way and then bang, suddenly it's changed?
I like it actually. I think on balance, what was really nice, especially, I really enjoyed the stuff we did in the group when we worked with orchestras, but coming out after 8 years and suddenly just seeing the way that all these groups worked and it was all different, it was really nice because I felt like, well, I know my way of doing things, but then this choir runs like this and this choir records like this, and it was really inspiring. I've learned a lot and added all those all the things that I like that other people do, taken that on board for my own work. So I think it's been helpful for my development as a musician generally.
I imagine there's quite a lot of singers watching, and they're all probably very jealous of the choirs you get to sing with. You're very, very lucky.
It's really nice, actually. One of the really nice things which made me reminisce about my VOCES8 days was I did a tour with a small group of 5 singers, and it comes under, it's called Tenebrae Consort, but it's everyone in that group is an ex-swingle singer or a king singer, and then obviously me from VOCES8. And then you really appreciate the skills that you've all learned doing a cappella that a lot of people don't have, you know, instinctively. So you get given a piece of swing and you instinctively sing it with the right style and the right voice color, and singing next to other people like that, I thought, oh, that's so nice, because often I'm not doing that anymore. You know, I'm not singing next to people who have done exactly the same experience as me.
You don't necessarily sing next to them, but you certainly live with one, because as Dingle told us last week, the two of you are very happily married. So
We are.
What's it like putting up with Dingle in lockdown?
Well, actually mostly really nice. I mean, of course, before lockdown happened, well, when it was just happening, he was in Scotland and I was here and I was on my own. So I was kind of in lockdown on my own for a week, and, you know, I was saying, oh, you know, please come home. But we realized that when we were in the group together, we spent every single day on tour together, and then went home to our house together as well. So we're very used to being in each other's company 24/7. That said, I am craving female company too. I would like to see some of my female friends and family.
Thing's quite in touch with his feminine side, isn't he?
Yeah, he's pretty good. He's quite sensitive. He's being a brilliant painter and decorator at the moment, when he's not doing music stuff. And yeah, we bought a house as well as getting married. So we're making the most of being here whilst we're
what does a day in lockdown with Ding and Em look like?
Well, in the first week, we were really excited about, you know, cooking and throwing ourselves into domestic things, and we did all the filing that we hadn't done for a year, and the novelty of that has worn off big time now, and we've had to do some actual work. So I've been making some, you know, video content for choirs and online workshops and things. But we start every morning, we start with a walk. So we get up, we get out of bed early, and we just start walking, and then it kind of walks away any like anxiety or stress. So that's been really helpful, and we're lucky to live in near the countryside, so we can put our walking boots on and be in the fields in 6 minutes, and that's having a really good impact on us, I think.
Yeah, that's really nice. Now, looking back to your days in VOCES8, you've already spoken about them a little bit. I mean, to give our viewers an insight into how the group developed in your time, you know, I think you joined just as we signed really with our first professional agency, and when you left, we just made our second disc for Decca Classic.
I think third Decca disc.
Even, yeah. So Winter, yeah, of course, yeah. So you really, I mean, spanned, you know, your tenure spanned a huge growth for the group. Looking back, you know, if you had to pick a fond memory, what would you go with?
You know, there are so many, and it's really nice thinking about it. One thing that always sticks in my mind, and I have recently, actually, especially in lockdown, I have these days where a really vivid memory comes into my mind, and it's like us in a backstage room in somewhere like Sendai in Japan. But one of the things I remember really fondly is spending 7 weeks on the road in America, driving across the Midwest, stopping for barbecue at, you know, a tiny little shack somewhere on the side of the road, and laughing a lot, just a lot of laughing all the time. I mean, that was so fun.
I think I spoke to Ding about this exact tour last week, and as a consequence, I went to our YouTube channel, and I found during that tour, it's 2012, Paul made a video for every day of the tour. And so I actually found them, and I put them in a playlist. So if any of our viewers want to catch up with what we're talking about, just go to our YouTube channel after this, click playlists, and look for the US tour 2012. And there's an hour and probably 2.5 hours worth of backstage tour videos to get.
Was that when it was 2012?
2012, yeah. Gosh,
that was really. I mean, it was really hard. That's the thing. So at the time, of course, it was amazing, but it was really long. We did 50 days, didn't we, in a row? But it's also, that's the thing, it's so unique. And then you look back on it and you think, gosh, like, you know, I managed to do all of that touring. And I think Japan, somewhere else that I remember really fondly. And also just creating, one of the things that I definitely missed when I first left was just creating really exciting harmony every single day, which is easy to take for granted when you're knackered in a rehearsal and you think, oh my God, I just can't do it. But actually, yeah, that's really fun memory.
Yeah, it's one of the things I think probably I'm missing at the moment. And sometimes even when we're working, I have moments of, actually often happens to me when I'm not singing. So, you know, if I've had to go and take a phone call or go to a meeting and the group's been rehearsing or working on something, and then I go back into the room and I just hear this lovely harmony, I'm like,
yeah,
Oh, that's really special. But we're so close to it all the time. All these people write lovely comments under our YouTube videos. You're like, well, I'm glad you like it that much. I'm not sure. I can't. I'm not sure I can empathise fully with how you've come to that. That height of feeling on it. But no, it is really special.
That's the thing. And when you're in the group and you're on stage and you're hearing your own, heart in your chest and your breath, and you think, oh, I breathed in that bar and it sounded rubbish, and the intonation, the intonation wasn't good enough, and then you really and I've really stepped back now, of course, because I'm not a member, and you just appreciate it for what it is, and the odd moment of intonation doesn't bother you as a listener, even if you're a musician, and you just think, gosh, it's so easy to get so caught up, isn't it?
Yeah, we're trying to keep some sort of perspective. I talked to some of our students about this, actually. A lot of the time at the beginning of a tour, there's a lot of perspective, but then you go through 15 sound checks where every time you spend half an hour talking about how the concert could be better, and you lose a lot of perspective very quickly. So, I was going to ask you, actually, one of the questions I thought we could talk about in advance then, which is you've just touched upon, is, you've been out the group almost 2.5 years now. So from where you stand now, where do you think the group has changed since you were in it in any way, or do you think it looks from the outside as it kind of looked from the inside?
I think it has changed, and I feel like I left just as it was, as you say, I kind of bridged quite a big span. So we'd started doing a lot of that online kind of video output as I was leaving, things
You're
like
on Blake and Euan, aren't you, for example, which is a hugely popular video.
Yeah, exactly. And people still stop me, which sounds ridiculous, but I promise you it's true. At Clapham Junction Station, I've been stopped numerous times by complete strangers saying, are you the person that sings Underneath the Stars? Things like that, which is just completely random. But yeah, I feel like I was just starting that. And I'd say, I've noticed the video content and the way you generate it frequently, and you keep a standard, that's really impressive. And also having 3 women is really cool to see. I would have
loved that, wouldn't you? Yeah, you'd have loved that in the group.
I would have really loved it, actually. It would have been I feel like it would have been really fun to be in the group with 3 women and all the men. That said, Chris, who obviously is the countertenor you replaced, is one of my closest friends, so I wouldn't have wished him not to be there. So that's been a really nice thing to listen to. I enjoy listening to the sound, because you get the obviously we switched around a bit and I sometimes sang alto, but you get the female, that different female sound coming a bit further down the group texture, which is really nice to listen to. I've enjoyed listening to it.
We did sing some parts together, didn't we? We used to do Rachmaninoff's Bogorodice Dievo, that we sang that, you sang alto with me in that, I remember. And actually on that Lux Eterna video, people often say, what instrument is it playing at the beginning? It's actually you and me singing in unison, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Really
we wanted to create those, that different sound colour, didn't we? And actually, that's something that's really nice when you've got people that work together every day, is that you can just do that. You can, Chris was singing soprano with Andrea to create a more, I guess, fluty, trumpety texture, and then you and me would create the slightly richer sound if we could.
I was listening to Victoria's O Mani Mysterium, because we recorded it in 2011, I think, in Choral Tapestry, and it was going to come up again for the group in a concert in Madrid that unfortunately was postponed because of this epidemic. But I was just, I started playing it. I was like, gosh, that sounds really nice and interesting. The opening of it, it's just the sopranos and the altos. And then I remembered that Chris had gone up and sung soprano and you come to sing alto. And so we've got that mix of male and female on both lines for the opening page of the piece. It's really effective.
It probably blends really well, doesn't it? Because I'm probably singing in chest voice and Chris is singing in his really lovely falsetto.
Yeah. So it's good fun, fond memories. So talking about recordings, how many I'm just trying to think how many you made with the group. What must have been?
I was listening it the other day, actually, for something. It's a lot, and actually, it was all those Signum records.
Which I think there are. So if we go, let's go with Aces High, Bach Motets, Choral Tapestry, Christmas, Marcello, Purcell, for the ones on Signum, and then 3 on Decca is 9, plus Equinox on VOCES8's own label is 10.
Yeah, I sang on that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, plus the little In the Beginning album that we made for the 5th anniversary.
And then all the ad lib stuff we did, where we did like little small singles and things. Yeah, it was lots of recording. It's really nice to have that, actually. A lot of my friends still listen to, you know, all these CDs, and I know I think it's Emirates have Eventide and Lux on, so when my friends are flying back and forward to the Middle East, they will send me a screenshot of them listening to me as they sleep.
You to try and go to sleep on the aeroplane.
Yeah.
So if you had to pick a favourite of those albums, what do you think would be your number one choice?
Gosh, that's really, really tough. The Eventide and the Lux and the Winter I like for the different sound quality that we created. I remember working so hard on that amazing blended sound, which is really hard to produce, but really effective.
We call it Deca Fuzz. And actually, to this day, when the group's delivering a workshop and we're describing and showing the different sounds we make, we still say, and this is Deca Fuzz, and you know, the group back then worked really hard on it, and we make the sound, and everyone's like, oh wow, that's really nice. Like, yeah, so
it really transformed, I think. It really honed the VOCES8 sound, and obviously you still do a broad range of repertoire, and we still have to do, you know, Bach and Handel and things, but it really transformed that a cappella sound.
Yeah.
And so I've got a big fondness for that, even though I remember some of the recordings feeling high pressure when you're on the top. And then actually the other day I turned on Radio 3 and they played the Marcello canon.
Oh, yeah.
And I didn't realise what it was at first, but I said to Dingle, I'm pretty sure I can hear both you and me singing on the radio. Come into the kitchen. And
I don't remember what it was.
I didn't know what it was, and then I realised, and I thought, gosh, that was so fun, like interpreting all that Baroque music with Patrick.
Actually, I'm actually speaking to Patrick Ayrton as our interview on Thursday, so later this week. And so I'm going to be featuring both the Marcello and the Purcell discs that we did with him as part of that interview. So it's nice that you've mentioned that.
Oh, well, he's a wonderful musician, and I have to say I learned a lot from collaborating with his group. One of my favourite memories is when we did VOCES8 did we do it in Dijon Opera House?
Yeah, April 2012.
Yeah, so all of that, that's a really fond memory for me, and obviously the Bach as well. I remember, I mean, I'd sung quite a lot of Bach at university, and I'd had a really fantastic lecturer there who'd helped me with, you know, understanding counterpoint. And then I remember joining the group and we did all those Bach motets off by heart and recorded them. And I mean, it was just incredible. I haven't listened to them for a while, but I always still love singing them. And
when I think back to that Bach project, I think for me it's going to take some displacing in terms of the greatest achievement for certainly, I think, me as a musician, but I think for even possibly for the group, because if you think how young we were, and those pieces are just incredibly difficult. And I mean, every part of the process was a challenge, wasn't it? Singing the music in the first place. We then went on to perform it from memory. Even getting the musicians together in a room, we couldn't, you know, we didn't have any money. We had to find these instruments to play with us, and the whole thing came together. And it's such a, I mean, yeah, I'm not going to stand here and say I'd do the motets the same today, because I reckon I would probably, you know, as I get a bit older, choose to change some of the interpretative quality of places. But I just listen to it, I'm just like, what an achievement that was. I'll be proud of that forever, I think. So
definitely, and that youthful quality in it. Yeah, it's nice to remember how old we all were when we were doing that. You know, it was really not necessarily experimental because we put a huge amount of preparation into it, but yeah, it was really exciting, and all those instrumentalists that came as well. You know,
it was our moon landing, wasn't it? One small leap it seemed like, but it was a giant leap for VOCES8. So. Amazing. Okay, well look, let's talk then about advice, because I always like to get advice from you, you golden oldies, as it is. VOCES8 for the young singers who might be watching this program, or indeed for any singer. So what would be your number one piece of advice then for a soprano? I mean, I know that there are so many sopranos out there who would love to have the portfolio career that you have and sing with all these groups. What would be your one piece of advice for somebody who's maybe completing their studies and looking to go into that sort of profession?
Well, I would say, it sounds obvious, but to keep having lessons, because then keep having singing lessons, that is, that really helps. So as your voice has to adapt to so many different ways of singing, that you have someone that supports you through that. And I guess that links to my next thing, which is that actually music making is getting more diverse. There's so many different ways to be a musician and to earn earn your living. And if you have a very narrow view of what you feel like singing should be, I think that really can hinder your opportunities and development. So for me, I would say keeping really broad-minded. You know, there's so much you can do, and if you're someone who enjoys working with other people and or, you know, training younger people or working in the community, then that's a really exciting thing to do as well, and actually only benefits your other music making. And then trying to be a really nice colleague when you can. Obviously that's really difficult when people get frustrated, but, you know, just trying to get on with people and be yourself, but be aware that everybody's under different stresses. So you might turn up to a rehearsal and somebody else is having a really bad day, and just being aware of that and trying to be compassionate where you can.
You know that probably the most famous singer I've ever met, whose name I won't mention, said to me when I said to them, how did you get to the level you got to? They turned around and they said, every contract I've ever done, I've made sure that they wanted to ask me back because they just knew me and thought I was a nice person. Nothing to do with the singing at all. But of course, probably in this person's case, it had something to do with it. But it's just that thing, isn't it, of being friendly and being nice to work with.
And being open-minded as well. I think, you know, it's very easy to feel like it has to happen in one way. And when you relax a little bit and appreciate that there are many ways to do things, that really helps. And it's hard. I mean, it's hard being a soprano. I would say there are so many of us. I found that becoming friends with all my colleagues, that's really lovely, rather than feeling competitive, you know, and encouraging each other and sending opportunities around to each other, but also not to compare yourself, because as a soprano, even more so than a lot of other voice parts, you're going to be rejected all the time, and that's normal. And you can't compare. It's really hard to compare 24-year-old soprano with you know, even a bass or something like that. You know, I live with Dingle, and he's a bass, and he's a great bass, but it is different depending on your voice part. So just, you know, doing your own thing and feeling confident in it, trying.
Okay, there's a last question before we let you go. I asked the same to Dingle last week. If you had to give one piece of sage advice to the current members of VOCES8 as a you know, a member who gave so much to the group, what would it be?
Gosh, I would say that you might feel like every single day is not the same, but that you're doing the same thing, but actually to the rest of the world, it's so unusual. So photograph it, even if you feel like you've got 100 photographs of, you know, sound checks, you can delete them later, but it really is unusual, and people will be interested in seeing, you know, what you've been doing. And also when it gets stressful, because I know that, you know, all jobs get stressful, but when you're in a small group, it can, to try and remember the world outside as well. And from, you know, staying in touch with your friends and your family and your life that isn't work, I think means you come to the job even clearer headed. And also, yeah, and it is not going to last forever. Like, obviously the group will, I hope, but being in the group, you know,
it's not.
Probably being in the group won't last forever. So just enjoying it, because, you know, you might feel on a bad day, you might feel like it feels really intense, but it's not forever, and actually it's an incredibly unique and amazing experience. And yeah, and then you'll look back on it, like, it sounds, I've not even been out in the group that long, but you'll look back on it and you'll remember all those things that were so unique and brilliant. And hold on to that.
Cherish the memories.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much for joining us. I would love, I mean, that people come up to me all the time and remember to me that their memories of you in the group, and I'd love those people who are watching who have great memories of Emily to stick them in the comments now. But one of the reasons I was always so grateful to you as a singer in the group was, you've talked about it a little bit, because of course you're an incredible singer, and we heard that in the Zing It Dim Hen at the beginning. You also had, I think, a very unique sound. You've got one of those voices that when you hear it, you're like, that is Emily Dickens singing. Mm-hmm. I think you'll always be grateful for that. But for me, it was always an ease that you had with the sort of, I wouldn't say pop, I'd say the more sort of folk jazzy element of the repertoire. So I remember in your very early days, you recorded on Aces High, you recorded the solo of What a Difference a Day Makes. Mm. That's something I have on so many of my playlists. But I think the track that's probably you'll remember most by our fans, and you've already mentioned that you get recognised on train station platforms for it, is Underneath the Stars. So to say thank you for your time, we're going to play that as as the end to this interview, but I'd love everybody else to stick their lovely comments to you down, and thank you for all the time you've given to the group, because we wouldn't be here today without the work you've done. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure, and it's really nice to follow what you're doing now as well.
Lovely to see you. Bye.
Bye.
We'll always be able to recognise that voice from a mile off. Lovely to catch up with the ever-radiant Emily Dickens and share some very fond memories with her. And thank you very much for all of the memories of her that you're putting on the comments. Nice to see the legions of fans still there. I know Emily's online and on chat at the moment, so get on there and converse with her whilst she's around. We've had some great questions whilst that little bit of content has been playing. Melanie Sanford Moran, I think it is, Morgan, sorry, says, how much of an impact do you think the choir schools in the UK have had on the standard of choral singing in the UK? Well, Melanie, I think we're very, very lucky to have such wonderful choral foundations. I think, you know, we are guaranteed to have us, say, 300 or 400 amazingly well-trained musicians coming out of choral institutions every year at least. So for that, we're very grateful. And of course, it keeps the standard high. One of the things that's been particularly pleasing for me to see in the last 10, 15, 20 years is the fact that chorister level, we're now managing to open up those opportunities to girls as well as boys, which is brilliant. And of course, that only increases the numbers of fantastic singers we have in the country. It is a challenge to keep our choral institutions going, so we really need to work very hard as a society and, of course, as a musical community to help our choral institutions maintain the wonderful work that they're doing. But certainly as somebody who came from a choral institution, I will be forever grateful of that upbringing that I was afforded. Peter Davis says, "Hi Barney, I'm a bass who's having to sing tenor in my choir." Bad luck, Peter, but I know many people have to do it, don't they, because we're often short of tenors. Any tips for developing that but not spoiling the lower voice? Well, Peter, I would say that making sure that you can develop a little bit of falsetto use at the very top end of your range is really helpful. If you want to easily find your falsetto, just laugh from the top down. And that stuff at the top, that's your falsetto. So really get up and try and use that if you can. The other thing I think is really crucial for you is that you sing as much as you can in head voice. It's really, really easy to work up from the bottom and just to force the larynx up. But before you sing, if you just take a yawn, puts the larynx in quite a nice lower position, and then you can sit on the top of the voice, and it gives the higher end of your register a bit more ease. So that feeling of yawning before you sing, and when the voice wants to go into falsetto, I would allow it to do so. Let's have a look. What other questions do we have? Stephen says, what would you say have been your favourite piece of work that you've ever loved and been involved in? A lot of amazing projects in VOCES8. Oh, that's too difficult to answer, I think, Stephen. I'm going to have to think about that one. Zachary says, will we ever hear a rendition of Caroline Shaw's Partita done by VOCES8? Well, Zach, we did have plans to perform some of it this summer. So if that concert still goes ahead, it's a very high-profile concert, so you may well hear some of Caroline's piece in that. And Nathaniel Hahn says, do you have a favourite single chord you've sung? Well, one of the chords we sing regularly is the last chord in our arrangement of Moondance, which I love, but also we sing some Jean Perling arrangements, and those are fantastic. You can look up on YouTube our arrangement of London by Night, and there's some really good stuff in there. Thank you for all the great questions. It's very nice to be in touch with you all. Nice to be speaking to you on the comments as well, so keep that all coming. One of the upsides of the lockdown for me is that I've had time to surf YouTube a little bit more and disappear down some of those rabbit holes that we find ourselves disappearing down when we do that sort of thing. And I found a hole this week that filled me with laughter and joy, and I think I even came out of it educated, so I felt I really had to share it with you. Globally acclaimed British vocal group I Fagiolini have for a long time been known as leading interpreters of early music, and indeed concert music of any shape and size. But I think it's more than just great singing and artistry that helps them to stand out from the crowd. Their director, Robert Hollingworth, as well as being a leading voice in academia and performance circles, also has a pretty tickling sense of humour. He certainly gets me, that's for sure. On the group's YouTube channel, Robert's now running a Sing the Score series, where he provides a concise, informative and humorous introduction to a piece before encouraging us, the listeners, to sing along with I Fagiolini's recording. For my money, it's absolutely brilliant. If you like Monty Python and singing early music, then you'll think all your Christmases have come at once. And Robert very kindly let me cut out a demo reel of one of the Sing the Score videos. So here are some of the edited highlights.
Hello and welcome to Sing the Score, all that nonsense. Now look, the reason that people like me sing this stuff for a living, it's not the girls, it's not the countertenor machismo. It's the fact that the best of these pieces are physically and emotionally almost overwhelming to sing. They're that powerful, just in the same way that your favourite Schumann song or a pop song gets you that way. These pieces do us as well. And that may not be how you think of Renaissance music. There is certainly a tradition of a certain reserve in performance of Renaissance polyphony, certainly among British groups. But there's a plangency to some of this repertoire that if you're singing it one to a part, and absolutely chorally as well, you have to find with the very core of your sound, nothing vocally or emotionally superficial. We're also talking about the difference between good music and really brilliant pieces, little masterworks lasting 3 or 4 minutes. So I'm sitting here and thinking, should I do some classic that would have broader interest and maybe get my numbers up a little bit? But then I think, no, what I want to do is share this piece, today's work, which you've probably not come across before, and you certainly wouldn't have gone looking for it, because it's a monster, mostly because of the passing notes. Oh, do you like it, sir? Passing notes, one rubbing itself up against the other one to create passing dissonance. Oh! The composer, someone whose songs, he didn't use the word madrigals or motets, I really rate, but who's not particularly fashionable. Thomas Tomkins. Was there ever a tormented wretch that lived in heaven, or a contented soul found down in hell? Yet I, taking pleasure in flames, am delighted in hell, but languish in heaven with grief and anguish. Presumably an oxymoronic metaphor for the contradictions of love.
What a phrase, what a phrase, an absolute beauty, a rip snorter of a phrase there from the middle-aged trundler from the University of York. Marvellous effort all round. Let's take one more look at that on the replay.
Oxymoronic metaphor. Poetry like this was like a red rag to a compositional bull. Because it was fashionable in late 16th and early 17th century Europe to set such provocatively descriptive words with harmony or musical figures that express their meaning in sound. So on Tormented, the harmony twists and turns with dissonance which musically torments.
This madrigal has extreme ranges, and Evangelini is not responsible for injuries sustained during his performance.
Terms and conditions apply. The range of a voice may go down as well as up.
Robert Hollingworth and Evangelini there with the wonderful Sing the Score series. That was just the demo reel that I created of one of the videos. There are plenty more up there on the group's YouTube channel, so please go and find those to keep yourself amused for a very long time. Thank you very much, Robert, for allowing us to use that, and good luck with the series. Now we're coming towards the end of the show, but before I go I want to give you a fun little exercise to keep your singing going nicely whilst you're in lockdown. This one's designed to make you look a little bit silly, like all good singing exercises are. You might also be surprised how hard it can be. It's an exercise that just avoids tongue retraction when we sing, trying not to let the tongue go down and suppress the larynx or take up any of the space that goes up the pharynx, up the back where we want the voice to resonate. All you need is a pen or a pencil, and you have to try and hold that pen or pencil under your tongue like this, and then sing whatever it is, your aria. So, you know, I could take a Barney, trying to hold the pen or pencil underneath your tongue will stop your tongue from retracting down your throat. Really good little exercise. You might feel it pull under here in the tongue root. As I say, more difficult than it looks, so get on there and do some practice. Now, before I go, I want you to let you know that there's plenty more to look forward to as part of the Live from Home campaign for the rest of the week. So here comes that schedule. We have Paul and Claire back tomorrow with their creative music making, so get your saucepans ready for that one. As I said earlier in the show, I'm going to be catching up with Maestro Patrick Ayrton, with whom we've had the pleasure of recording our Purcell Collection and Marcello Psalms albums. On Friday, Blake will be back giving us another one of his insightful talks, this time about the history of a cappella. He's going to be playing lots of recordings and explaining how our little niche has developed from its birth in barbershop to where we are today with the likes of the pentatonics. And I can assure you, as somebody who's seen brief versions of that in classes that he's led before, that's certainly something that's not to be missed. And at the weekend, we've got 2 music video releases. Apollo 5 will be sharing a track on Saturday, with VOCES8 closing the week out on Sunday, so lots to look forward to. Now, if you'd like to make music with us, you can also do that as part of our Singing Brussels project, which is led by my brother Paul. Now, all you have to do is record yourself singing one note, nice and softly to the oo vowel, lasting for about 5 seconds, and if you email that to paul@voces8.foundation, that's paul@voces8.foundation, hopefully you'll be able to find your way into a big virtual piece that Paul is putting together. So thank you for your engagement and your questions today. As ever, we're here to learn and develop our skills in delivering these presentations. So if you've got any comments or suggestions, then please do write to me or put them in the comments here before you leave. I'm going to be back next week. I said I'd be back on Tuesday, but I'm actually going to be back on Thursday. So that gives you 2 extra days to make your gingerbread. So in the meantime, I hope you can enjoy doing some baking, and I'll look forward to seeing the pictures of all your lovely creations. Now, as ever, I'd love to leave you with some singing. So here's a classic VOCES8 tune, Straighten Up and Fly Right, written originally, of course, by Nat King Cole, but this is our arrangement by Jim Clements. So thanks so much for joining me, and see you next week. Bye.
Took a monkey for a ride in the air. The monkey thought that everything was a square. The buzzer tried to throw the monkey off of his back. The monkey grabbed his neck and said, now listen, Jack, straighten up and fly right. Straighten up and stay tight. Straighten up and fly right. Go down, Papa, don't you blow your top. Ain't no use in diving. What's the use in jiving? Straighten up and fly right down, Papa, don't you blow your top. The buzzer told the monkey, you are choking me. Release your hold and I will set you free. The monkey looked the buzzer right dead in the eye.
The story's so touching, but it sounds just like a lie.
Straighten up and fly right. Straighten up and stay tight. Straighten up and we'll stay. Straighten up and fly right. Straighten up, cool down, Papa, don't you blow your top. Straighten up and stay tight. Straighten up and fly right. Cook down, Papa, don't you blow your top. Ain't no use in diving, what's the use in jiving? Straighten up and fly right.